So hello everybody, ConvertWithMoss 20 is out, and thanks to many contributions I get from several people, we have a list of changes which is no less than 7 pages long. So insane update. That's why I increased the version number to 20, but let me walk you through all the new stuff. First thing you might notice, we got a contribution of a nice new icon set. So the icon looks now much nicer also here on the window or in other places which icons show up. And you might also notice that there is a change here in that area in the user interface. And what that does here is you see you have this option now in front of the source folder, which lets you switch to file, which means you can now also pick single files and don't have to do batch conversion, which converts everything in a folder. So for example, this is especially helpful if you want to convert only a CD-ROM image, for example, or just need that one single file and you don't have to put it in a separate folder to do this. And both have a separate history, so it remembers the files you did before. And if you also switch back here, you will also get here your file history for the folders. Something also I reintroduced is having tooltips here on the list. For example, if there were some names which just not fit the list width. So we see now on the tooltip what is available and what the full name is for that specific format. Also, we have an extension to the exchange model in the background. So now first steps are taken to support LFOs as well. So LFOs was the last thing basically missing. And we have now basic support for pitch and volume modulation, which means vibrato and tremolo. But this is work ongoing. So some formats like SF2 or SFZ already supported, but there are more to come. As I said, this single file conversion is especially helpful if you have a CD-ROM, for example. So let's pick one, and that's also the option where I can show you that we have a new file format supported. So actually there are several new formats again in this version, and here we have now EMU support, and let's pick EMU CD ISO. And what you can do here is you see I've pre-selected the Roland SP-404, which was pre-selected here. So I should have changed that in advance, but I can still change it here to pick a single file. So let's say I need emulator 3, and then I also see here the single files. Let's pick one of that, and there is now another new feature here. We not only have the single file option, we also have another button here, which means contents, which allows you also to cherry pick presets or sounds from a source, so you don't have to convert all of them at once. So let's open that. You see there is some analyzing happening. So it basically also runs the normal analysis process in the background and then shows you this little dialog, which shows you all the content on that CD-ROM, and you can now pick only the ones you want to convert. So you could select none and then say, I only want to have this. Yeah, is there a piano on it? Oh, there's plenty of pianos on there, and you can pick the one you like. Let's say maybe the sustained piano. And there's another very cool feature which got also contributed is we have a play button here. So what that does, it renders this sound in the middle C3, or if there is no C3, it takes a different one and renders it with the envelopes, with the LFO, everything, and you can have a listen here, which you, I guess, might not hear because I'm not recording sound output, but nevertheless, it played now a nice piano sound here. So, and then you can also pick others, so as many as you like, and then you can say, okay, and you see, okay, we have here converting only 2 of 1,255 found presets, and you can clear that to go back to converting all of them. And if we now start the conversion process, let's say we want to go to SFZ, convert that, and then it converts only these 2 files, as you see here. And let's also have a look at the output folder, and you see we have only these two sounds now. And there are more EMU versions available. 4 and X was the late software version of EMU's emulator, and these files can also be read, and they can also be written, which is also quite new, that these old formats can be written as well, but they have not been tested with real hardware. So this is basically just replicating the source format in the destination format, and none of the contributors, and even I also don't have a real emulator. I had one back in the day, but not nowadays. We don't have one at hand, so please, if you have emulators lying around in your studio, please give this a go and test, and please tell us if it's working or not, and if it's not working, what are the issues? Tell me down here in the comments. But there's also another extension for Roland S-550, which I already added support in a previous version. And I noticed there was actually support only on S-550. So the rec version, there was support for SCSI, and there was even a CD-ROM, which was called CD5, and I could only find two two CDs for that format, but maybe some people did their own and have more of them. And this can now also be read in this ISO format. And let's show you these two CDs. And this folder contains two ISOs, and there I can also show you that this cherry picking does also work on folders. And we will now scan the two CDs, and you can also close that here. So you see we have these two ISO CDs here analyzed, and here you can also do then the cherry picking and pick only the two sounds, for example, you'd like to have. For example, we want to have, what do we need? A nice pad, maybe. Okay, so there's an analog pad and whatever M1 power pad. These two, let's maybe get rid of that first. Let's convert them. And here we go. We have these two sounds we want to have. So there's also another addition to the Akai MPC series. So the current one, let's filter for MPC. So that one here is a modern one, which supports now in their OS version 3 this XTY format, which writes a whole track. And this can now also be written, not only read. So read support was already in the previous versions. So here we have now the option to choose MPC 3 track. If you for any reason prefer that over XPM, you have now the option to do that as well. And there are more new formats. There is also support for the Roland 404 Mark II SMP formats. And yeah, this can be done as well. You can also write them, that format. It's very limited, but nevertheless, it helps you to bring in samples into these models. And again, this has not been tested with real hardware. If you have an SP-404 Mark II, please have a look at that if that works on the device. And last but not least, there was already Synclavier Reagan added in the last version, but now there's also support for Arturia Synclavier V, so a virtual version of the Synclavier. And this can be read and written as well, but it is a little bit tricky to do so. So, for example, let's do that here. Yeah, why not? Let's pick that contact file. So let's select here contact format. We have an ensemble, and let's do that. So, and here is this file, this strings format, and it also contains the samples. But there is an issue, or there are several issues with that format. I'm not sure if we're doing anything wrong still, but I think this might be more problems on Arturia's side. So let me show you the issues. So if I start here Synclavier, I have here the option to import presets. And let's do that. So here is the converted file. And it says it cannot do it. No idea why. But if I run it inside of a DAW, so for example, let's fire it up here in Bitwig. And if I choose import here, again on the desktop, here we are, then it works successfully and I can play the sound. Guess you will not hear it again, or maybe hear it via the microphone a bit, but it's working nicely. But the problem is, even if I say save, actually the samples are not stored, or it's only stored locally somewhere to the door. I don't know, because if we run now it again, the Synclavier application as a standalone and try to load that sound, which should be present here somewhere. So here it is, and it says missing samples, because if you check that folder, it's simply empty. So it's not copying the files for whatever reason. So that what this option is for, you can say write the samples into user presets folder. And if we do the conversion again, we will also have a folder with the user content. And then you can simply move that into the user folder here. So if we now reload the file, it's loading fine. Okay, so it's a bit of a hassle to do that. You need to copy the samples manually, but nevertheless, it's working. What I then tried to do is to copy over this sound to my Astrolab, and it did that fine, but it did not sound at all. So there was no error about missing samples or anything. It just copied it over nicely, but it's just not making any sound at all. So I don't have any idea what's wrong with that. If you have any insight into that, or if someone from Arturia is watching, please have a look at that or tell me what to do. Yeah, so much for version 20 of ConvertWithMoss, another insane update with so many features. Again, thanks to all the contributors to that version, and I hope you like it, dig it, and until next time, make some funky music.